My name is Kelly Miller.
What is your abortion story?
My abortion story happened to me in my 20s, and when I found myself pregnant, I just disassociated myself from the situation and just told myself I had to get rid of it. It was an inconvenience. It was something that I didn't want to have in my life. And
did you ever think about abortion before?
I had never really thought about abortion before. When it happens to you and your life is being altered, it was selfish of me, but it was kind of like I was on this path, and this was just going to deter me, and I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it.
Did people know?
I didn't let anyone know. I was by myself. I didn't tell my boyfriend at the time. I just wanted to get rid of it, and saying it, for me, tissue, cells, that's how I could disassociate myself from not thinking of it as a child.
How did you feel when you were going through this? How did you feel when you first found out you were pregnant?
When I first found out I was pregnant, I was devastated. I took the test like 3 times thinking this can't happen to me. I was afraid. I was very afraid. But then I realized I had to take care of this so that I could go on with my life. In other words, it was just like a problem just to get rid of so that I could go on with my life.
You're doing amazing. You're seriously doing fantastic. It's going to be...
Oh gosh.
Grab one.
Okay, well, when you start talking about Blaze, that's when I start to get a little,
Exactly.
you know. So yeah, no, it's all good though. Seriously, love it.
So, tell us about getting the abortion.
When I first went in to be checked and found out that I was pregnant and decided that I was going to have the abortion, basically they just make an appointment for you. You go in and nobody talks to you. I was numb. I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to think of it as a life. So to me, it's just get rid of the problem, it'll go away, and you go on with your life. So it felt numb. I felt very numb.
How'd you feel after?
Well, during and after, that's a different story. During, I kept trying to disassociate myself. It was very difficult, though, because you've got the machines and you're seeing things happen, and they're just telling you, just lay there, you know. And as I left, the cramping went home. When I got home, I was by myself again, since I didn't tell anybody about it. So I just, you know, told people I had really bad cramps, and I was okay. I'd be okay.
How'd you feel emotionally throughout?
Emotionally, when I had the abortion, I really disconnected myself. I didn't allow myself to know that this was a child, that this was a person. It was cells, it was tissue, it was a mistake I made. And I was going to fix my mistake so I could go on with my life.
This is fantastic. I just watched this video being made. It's perfect. You're doing amazing. Now, just background. You had a second abortion too, right?
I did.
Okay, so it's only, I'll reword that question so we can get that.
Oh, sorry.
So you were how old in your first one?
My first abortion, I was in my early 20s.
And then you, tell us about your second one.
The second one, I was in my late 20s, and the first thing I was mad at myself for allowing myself to be in the situation again and again, inconvenience, and again, nobody knew about it. And I don't know if I was embarrassed or I didn't know what to do, I think. Now looking back, I think maybe if someone had talked to me or if I'd asked questions. But when I went, I did go through Planned Parenthood, and the appointment was made. They kind of usher you in. It's very, very impersonal. They don't really talk to you. They tell you, you know, they give you instruction, and they kind of walk around you like you're not really a person. The sounds of the machine, you know, I had to try to block it out.
What do you remember most about the second one?
The second time was, you know, kind of remembering the first time too. And just like I said, feeling disconnected. I'm really good at numbing myself. So I just thought of different things, and I thought, okay, I wonder how long I'm going to be feeling these cramps. I wonder from last time I remember it was about a day. I wonder if it's going to be worse. I wonder if I'm going to bleed more. You know, just the basic of what my body was going to do. Not so much emotionally. I disconnected emotionally.
What would your parents have said at the time?
My parents, if they would have found out, my mom would have, I know, told me to get rid of it, which when I had my son was her instruction. Get rid of it because it's going to ruin your life. I was modeling at the time, doing fashion shows, and she just said it's going to ruin your life. no one will marry you with a child, nobody will want you. And I don't know if that was something in the back of my mind because we had discussed it, although she didn't know that I was in the situation.
What would you have needed the first two times to make a different decision?
Looking back now, knowing that it's a life, makes it so much more difficult after I have a son, have my child now. I have a son, because I see that it was a life. I see those were lives. Who would those people have been? Who would I have missed out on having in my life? I wish somebody would have told me, showed me pictures, showed me at different stages of a pregnancy what was happening in my body. I just completely disassociated so that I didn't have feelings. I numbed myself. Maybe a friend, maybe if I would have told a friend, maybe that would have helped. But when you went into Planned Parenthood, if somebody maybe would have taken you in a room and discussed it with you, your options, there are options. I don't know if I would have made a different choice, but I would hope I would have, looking back, if I had more information.
Tell us about the third time you got pregnant. What did you feel when you found out?
The third time when I found out, devastated. My son's father and I had split up, real recent, of course. And when I found out, I was pretty far along. And I found out that it was about 20 weeks, and you have to go up to LA at that time. I don't know what the rules are now, but you had to go to LA to have the abortion done. They wouldn't do it in San Diego after 20 weeks. So I made the appointment. After I made the appointment, you know, I again tried to disassociate from it, just thinking I just got to take care of this. It's like a job, just go take care of it. About 2 days before my appointment, I started to feel butterfly movements in my stomach. I started kind of feeling like fluttering movements. So I tried to ignore it. You know, it'll go away. It's just, you know, my body is doing things. Didn't really think about it. Then it kept happening. And the more it happened, the more I started to become overwhelmed and think, there's somebody in there. It's not cells. It's not tissues. It's not just nothing. It's somebody. It's a person. Those movements saved my son's life. And him kicking, moving, the fluttering of the heartbeat. I'm not sure at what was going on in there, but I did a lot of praying at the time. Did a lot of praying.
Did you ever pray before?
I had prayed, and I don't think I had prayed as much as I did. After feeling that, I made an appointment at one of the local churches. The pastor didn't show up, I don't know why, and that was really hard for me because, I was alone again. No, I didn't tell anybody at first. So here I am in this position where I'm thinking, I can't do this. I'd be a single mom. How am I going to do this financially, emotionally? How could I do this?
So you reached out to someone, and they weren't there.
I did. Yeah, I did at this point in time. And I've always been kind of a loner, so I kind of go within and think about things. But yeah, I didn't tell anybody. I was doing fashion shows at the time. One of the girls eventually, I told her eventually.
What'd she say?
When I told my friend that I was modeling with, she'd asked me, she said, if you're having the child, can I go with you? Can I be your coach? And I started just becoming overwhelmed with feelings of, if I do continue with this pregnancy, which I couldn't see any other choice because of the feelings I was having, what is best? Would it be best to give my child to a couple so he'd have a father? Or would it be best if I kept the child? And all I could think of was, he'd have to come before you. You couldn't put yourself first anymore. This child would have to come before you. Can you do that? Can you do that? And my prayers always seemed to, just asking God, how can I do this? What am I supposed to do? Just kind of questioning, what I was supposed to do at this point and waiting for instruction. And I kept praying and praying, and I kept getting the same thing into my mind, which was, if you treat him like a burden, he'll be a burden. And if you treat this child like a blessing, he'll be a blessing. And as much as I prayed, that I kept having that thought come in. And, people might think it was, me thinking it, but I think it was, the Lord's intervention and letting me know it was going to be okay. If I treated this child like a blessing, it would be okay.
So this woman, this girl who you're modeling with, if she said, get rid of it, do you think you maybe could have made a different choice, or at least it would have changed? At least because it sounds like she said something like, can I help you? Right?
when I was modeling, a lot of the girls, you have to understand too, it's a very selfish industry. It's how you look, that's what you're worth. You're worth what you look like. And when I told my friend, the first thought, she asked me, she says, well, you're not gonna have it, are you? It was kind of that thing, you're not having it, are you? Probably knowing I wasn't in a position to have a child, take care of a child. I had a job, but it wasn't the greatest job in the world. So there was a lot of what ifs and what would be the best thing for you. But at that point, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me anymore. It was part of me. Inside me, there was a baby. It was a person that I would be responsible for. So I had to make that decision, and I knew my life was changing. My life would change 100%, be different.
So how long, when was all this compared to the date of the abortion that was scheduled? What did you do with that scheduled abortion?
When I scheduled the abortion for the first one,
Third one.
when I scheduled the abortion for when I was pregnant with my son, I had the appointment. It was 2 days before the appointment when I started to feel the butterfly movements, and I canceled it. I had to call and cancel the appointment because, at first I was torn for a moment, but it's once I started feeling the fluttering movements, I knew I had to make that phone call.
Was that a hard phone call?
Actually, it was relief once I did it. It felt like a relief, felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders because I was wavering what to do, but I knew what the right thing to do was at that point. I knew what it was, that I should do.
How was the rest of your pregnancy?
My pregnancy with my son was the most beautiful thing in the world. It was easy. I had no morning sickness. I worked out almost every day. The only in the very beginning, I was questioning whether I was going to put him up for adoption. That was my only thing, and so I was trying to figure out if I should become attached. You know what I mean, or just, but I took care of myself. I ate well, and I exercised, and did everything like I was supposed to do.
Why did you decide not adoption?
I decided not to have him adopted, probably for selfish reasons, wondering where he'd be. Would that person love him as much as I would? And again, I made the choice that child had to come before me, and I made that choice, and I decided, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I had no idea if I was going to financially be able to do it. There were a lot of questions that were popping into my mind. It was very overwhelming. How was your
family around you once you told them that you were going to have a baby?
My mother, when I first told my mother that I was pregnant, she told me not to have the child. She told me to get rid of it because it was going to ruin my life. And I didn't really have much conversation with her immediately afterwards because I didn't want to hear that. One of my friends that I modeled with knew the baby's father and told him. And that was difficult because, he didn't want anything to do with me, but wouldn't talk to me, so I just kept him out of the equation. So.
Who did you do it with?
I had my son alone. The girl that I modeled with, her name is Mary. She showed up at the hospital just as I was having the baby. And so she was there during his birth.
So it's possible to do it alone?
Absolutely. It's possible to do this alone. It's very difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It was emotionally draining at times. A lot of crying, a lot of wondering what my life was going to turn out to be. How is this going to work? And in my heart, I knew it was going to be okay. Somehow I was going to get through it, but I didn't know how. I had no idea how, and I had to have faith. So I just kept praying. I kept praying and wondering how I was going to do it. And it's just amazing how along the way, everything worked out. People reached out to me, people helped me, people that were just in my life randomly helped me. So I feel like it's just meant to happen that way.
Tell us about the first time you saw him.
The first time I saw my son, it was a little overwhelming. He was 9 pounds, 3 ounces. I had him in less than 3 hours. Easy. My first thought was, I'd never seen a newborn, so I thought, oh my gosh, this is not my child, because he's been in amniotic fluid for 9 months. So he looked like a boxer, someone had boxed him. But I realized when they laid him on me that I was going to be responsible for at least the next 18 years. Little did I know it's the rest of your life. But for the next 18 years, this was my responsibility. This was my life. This child was my life.
Was it an overwhelming sense that it just come on you?
When I was giving birth to my son, there were a few things that did happen. I did have flashbacks of my abortion. I had flashbacks. Now, was it the machine that was next to me that was monitoring me? Was it just the feeling of realizing that this is what I would have had if I would have continued with the pregnancies. This is a person. This is a person that is here because I made the choice. I could have thrown this away. This could have been, this could have been nothing.
How did, at that time, I don't want to dive deeper into that. You're doing amazing. How did you, at that moment, how did you feel about the first two abortions?
When I was giving birth to my son, I did think about the first two abortions, and it was pretty heavy on my heart at that moment. I think that was the first time I had emotion linked to the abortions. That was the first time I realized that those were people that I just discarded. I just didn't have. And how sad it was. How sad it was of what I did. I realized the reality of what I did.
Do you regret it?
I do regret having both of those abortions. I can tell you 100% that I regret it. I have no idea how my life would have been, but I know it would have been okay. Eventually, there's so much help out there that we need to know about. We need to educate people to let them know, to let them see these babies, at what stage in your womb they're developing, and show them it's a person. I definitely would have had both those children, definitely.
Talk
Without a doubt.
about raising baby Blaze.
Raising baby Blaze, I have been blessed over and over and over with this child. He, from the start, was caring, kind of quiet to himself, but he was very smart, very fun. Just, I always said he was, color in my black and white world. He was just always just a lot of fun. But anytime he saw someone crying, he would go over there and help them. He would be the first one to give someone his toy, or say, "Mom, we have to go help this person." So he had a heart already from the beginning.
Where did you get that from?
I'd like to say, grace of God, the child is just always giving, caring, and I believe that his heart was just right from the beginning. I really do. I took him to Sunday school when he was little, and I was hoping that would instill some good in him.
Did you ever think about what happened, what it would be like if you had a third abortion?
At the moment I had Blaze, the abortions were not even a factor in my life. I would never, ever consider ever having an abortion again. Just seeing what happens when you do become pregnant, that this is the outcome of it. This beautiful person is the outcome of it. I would look at him at night sometimes and cry because I think I almost didn't have this person in my life. It was so close.
Can you spell that out a little more? So what would you do? You'd go into his room?
I would go into my son's room at night, just check on him sometimes, just put my hand on him, make sure he's breathing, make sure he's okay. And I would cry because of just knowing that he was almost not with me. He was almost not my son. And I couldn't imagine my life without him. At that moment, I loved him so much. I would have died for him at any point in my life. And he was before me. I put him before me. He was everything. He was my entire life. I didn't care what happened in my life, I had him.
What an interesting difference, right? So here you are now, willing to die for your son. It's amazing. Tell us about your son now.
Blaze, my son is awesome. He's done so many incredible things in his short life. He's 24 years old right now. He'll be 25 in October. He went to San Diego Christian College, played baseball there, graduated with youth ministry. He works as a youth pastor over there with the high school students. And the reason he chose high school students is because he feels like that's the point in their life that he can make the biggest difference. He's gone to third world countries to serve the Lord, to work in orphanages, sports camps. He has fed the homeless. He helps his friends. Heart of gold. He would give you, the shirt off his back. And he's taught me probably more than I've taught him in life. He's my gentle giant. He teaches me every day. Teaches me.
What do you think about the fact that this life he made has gone around the world to help other lives?
In thinking about Blaze and all he's done in a short time in his life, I can't imagine the world missing out on him doing such good things in the world, even if he's touched just a few of the kids in the orphanage, even if he's touched a few of the homeless people. He talks to them. He gets down and not just feeds them, but he communicates with them, lets them know they're loved. The world would have missed out on an awesome person. The Lord would have missed out on a servant. And of all the incredible things, if he wasn't here, he wouldn't be able to do these things. And I'm so proud of him.
Why did Blaze want you to make this video?
My son is a great Christian man. He lives by the Bible, and I can honestly say that we talked about this many times and how close I came, and we believe that it was the Lord intervening in my life at that time, especially when I look at what he's done with his life. And in truth, he was the blessing that I was told that if I treated him like a blessing, that he would be a blessing. My son wanted me to speak on his behalf also. He thinks, obviously that it's so important that people hear what happened in my life so that people will see that there are alternatives and it can turn out to be the most beautiful thing in your life. I can't imagine my life without my son. And I'm so happy that, I felt those movements when I did. And he knows the whole story, and he was pushing me. He says, Mom, you gotta go talk, you gotta tell people, even if it helps one person to make a decision to keep their baby, if it makes, the difference in someone's life to heal or to forgive themselves maybe for what they've done and help somebody else. Seriously, because if it helps one person to heal or one person to make that change. But the craziest part of this whole story or my life is the fact that thought that kept popping in my head. I believe it was the Lord giving me that gift. If you look at life, look at how people treat their children. If they treat them like they're a burden and they're in the way, that's what they're going to be. But if you treat them like that blessing, oh my gosh, I love him. I love you so much. You're such a blessing to me, and you treat them like that blessing, they are going to bless you every day of your life. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. No, I didn't even know that.
So when
Wow.
you said if this, so our intent was to change people's minds. Your intent was just to heal people, and you've already done that.
Or to change people's minds
That's
too.
it.
Yeah.
That'll happen too.
Yeah.
I know that'll happen too, but you've already healed people. So I just
Wow.
wanted to
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, there's way too much stuff there.
Yeah.
So we should just stop.
Yeah.
We got a couple more minor things to do. First, just any final thoughts, any part of the story that you haven't told that you would like to share?
Have a moment. Can I have a moment to think about that?
Sure.
Okay.
There's no wrong answer. I'm just saying you've done a perfect job from our perspective.
Well,
So if there's
thanks.
anything else in your heart?
There's so much in my heart that it's hard to spell it out. I never thought I'd be here. Never thought I'd be here speaking about my life and what's happened in my life, because I've always pushed it to the back of my mind. I never wanted to deal with it or talk about it. But when my son became a youth pastor, he's dealing with kids in high school that's girlfriends are getting pregnant. He's dealing with, seeing things firsthand. So I believe that him talking to me really encouraged me to keep going. And as sad as I feel about my past decisions, I am just overwhelmed with joy every time I see my son. Every time he comes home, he walks in the front door, and it's just joy. I actually run up to him, and it's kind of our joke. Blaze is home, Blaze is home, and I run over to him and hug him. It's just and he knows how full of joy I am just to spend time with him. It's just amazing.
And it's funny you brought that because when you were 22 and you said you brought all it, you put it all down, put it in the back,
Yep.
you try to ignore it, and now
If-
here you are doing the opposite.
Exactly. And too, if you feel like, okay, it's like I'm not going to think of this as a life, so I'm going to ignore it. So it's not there. I'm going to ignore it. It's going to be gone in a day, or right now they're taking this away from me. So I'll go on with my life. I'll go on and go to dinner like I was supposed to, or go do that fashion show. I'm going to go do things, and I can forget about this. Well, you don't forget about it. This stays with you the rest of your life. It may be at a different time. It took years. It took my son's birth for it to come flowing back, for me to realize the reality of everything that had happened. But every day, I'm thank God for my son. Every day, I don't let a day go by.